From Dallas, Texas, the flash, apparently official, President Kennedy died at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time, 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, some 38 minutes ago.
I was a senior in high school, and I was in world history class, I think, and some kids were just coming out throughout the building with radios saying the president's been shot, the president's been shot, and we were all struck dumb.
I was with my family, and we couldn't believe it. It was a terrible event and just unbelievable. Not as unbelievable as 9/11, but almost.
It was probably around 1 o'clock in the afternoon. We had just come back from lunch, and she went over to the window and burst into tears because the principal had just told her, and we all were shaken to the core because we had no clue. And then when she told us the president had been shot, we weren't really quite sure at that age, the president, let's see, the president of what in some ways. And then when she said John F. Kennedy, then we all just were frozen. Yeah, it's a day that you do never forget as long as you live.
And I slipped on the TV set very low, just in time to hear that, I can't think of his name, that famous news reporter, throw down his glasses and say, "That's it, the president is dead."
We were sitting in a 7th grade class. I attended a Catholic school in Connecticut, and the Mother Superior came in and told us that John Kennedy had been shot. We all went into the church, and they said a special mass of emergency for the president, and then they sent us home.
I was at home in the family house, sitting looking at the telly, and a man by the name of Charles Mitchell came on. He was an Irish newsreader. He came on and very solemnly said, "President John F. Kennedy has been shot." And you must remember that the year he was shot, about 6 months previous to that, he had visited Ireland. I was only a teenager. And we all went down to the main highway, as you would call it, to see him. I remember he was so handsome.
I do, yes. I was on stage. I was in an amateur theatre company. I was very young, and I was on stage doing a little play, and we announced it to the audience, and the audience gasped. And it was very difficult to carry on with the play after that great tragic loss.
The party are Vice President and Mrs. Johnson, and Texas Governor John Connally.
I don't know if he took a photo of him or he sat for it, he sketched it, and then he did 3 or 4 of these portraits. So there's different ones for different.
Again, I think part of the allure of this story is this immigrant past, this man who was given really every opportunity, who then had a very successful career, became president of the United States, but then used his power, I believe, to help both the needy in this country and African Americans who are discriminated in this country, but also cared deeply about poverty and disease in the Third World, and launched a number of programs, the Peace Corps and more foreign aid to help those lands. So there's something it's just something very hopeful, again, about that story, and I think that's what really helps to capture America's imagination.
Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
I believe that this nation should commit itself to achieving the goal, before this decade is out, of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the earth.
Today, in the world of freedom, the proudest boast is, Ich bin ein Berliner.
And the thing that is so compelling about the John F. Kennedy legacy was that he asked people to give of themselves to make the world a better place. He asked Americans in his famous inaugural, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. He asked the world through the Peace Corps, through the Nuclear Test Ban Treaty, how can we together make the world a safer place?
Mrs. Kennedy a warm welcome. The usual welcoming committee presents Mrs. Kennedy with a bouquet of red roses.
The last person he wanted to see was the photographer. After how he began to relax, eventually full house.
Little did Lowe know Kennedy was running for the White House. Commission creating Camelot.
In some ways, she's outlived him. She outlived him in life, and her message, her memory has lived beyond him a bit. You also have the young Kennedys. It wasn't that long ago that John Kennedy Jr. was killed, so people knew about him. He was covered in the media, a person of fascination. Carolyn Kennedy, of course, is now the ambassador to Japan, so it's almost like America's royal family.
I can think of no country in which I would rather serve than Japan. I first visited in 1978 with my uncle, Senator Kennedy, and was deeply affected by our visit to Hiroshima. I think the Japanese are engaged in a process of